So our next speaker will be Xingyi Fu and Norbert Vanek, and they will talk about conceptual changes in motion event cognition, a breaking continuous flash suppression study with advanced Chinese learners of English. So Norbert, would you please share your presentation?
Hi everyone, this is actually Xingyi PhD work. He's the presenter.
Ah, yeah, okay.
She's here.
Hello. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, yes, we can hear you. So would you please share your presentation?
Oh, just 1 minute.
So we started 4 minutes late, and you'll of course get the extra time as well. And we'll start the next presentation 4 minutes late as well.
Sorry, 1 minute. My screen is, oh, here. Sorry about that. Can you see my screen now?
No, not yet.
No?
So maybe you just to start sharing again.
About right now?
Yes, yes, now it's coming up. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Hello, everyone. Today I'm going to talk about conceptual changes in motion event cognition, a breaking continuous flash suppression study with advanced Chinese learner of English. First, I'd like to emphasize that breaking continuous flash suppression technique has never been used in the domain of motion event. So, the advanced Chinese learners of English are my study group, but I will also have other two groups, Chinese monolinguals and English monolinguals. These two groups are the control groups. First, I'd like to brief you with some background information. In the previous study, it is hard to find pronounced. It is easy to find pronounced cross-linguistic differences in verbalizing motion events. However, this kind of effects has barely seen in the context without overt language use. For example, in the classic nonverbal task, in order to stop participants from using language as a reference silently, the researchers asked participants to recite numbers while they are performing the nonverbal tasks. For example, this number shadowing task has been done in 2017, and she didn't find any cross-linguistic differences in her nonverbal experiments. However, in Flinkin and a colleague in 2014, they found some cross-linguistic differences in their nonverbal tasks. But the concurrent task they use to stop participants from using language as a reference silently is ask participants to listen to the sea waves. It seems like the differences between difficulty of the suppression generate yield mixed results in the nonverbal tasks. It makes me wonder that is there a way that we can minimize the possibility that participants can use language as intentionally used assistance in a nonverbal task? The present study, here we go. Here we can see the research questions. So the present study is trying to find out, do differences in the linguistic encoding of motion events, for example, manner-focused English versus equivalent Chinese, affect automatic or low-level processing of motion event in language in language-specific ways? The aim of this present study is to exclude the bias of using language as an intentionally used assistance while performing a nonverbal task, or to tap into automatic processing. The rationale is to use a new technique. It's called a breaking continuous flash suppression. This technique is usually used in vision-based research that prevents you from consciously seeing objects. I will explain more details about this technique later. Here is a setup of the methodology. Breaking continuous flash suppression is first introduced by Jiang and colleagues in 2007. And in the present study, I'm going to use it to detect automatic processing of motion event cognition by excluding the bias of using language as an intentionally used assistance to perform a nonverbal task. The rationale of this technique is that the salient stimuli are harder to be surprised by a flickering mask, and they break through suppression faster than less salient stimuli. The equipment I'm going to use is a mirror stereoscope, a goggle, or you can call it a mirror stereoscope glass goggle. It makes your left eye only see the things in front of your left eye, and your right eye will only see the things in front of your right eye. And here's an example. You can see one of your eye will see the flickering mask, the other one will see the stimuli. Here comes the conditions of the methodology. There are 12 sites of stimuli. Always use the same person. Each site shares the same scenario with 3 conditions: full match, pass match, and manner match. Match and mismatch means the comparison between prime picture and the target videos. For each site of the stimuli, each participant see the same path when they see different manners, and the same manner when they see different paths. The 6 manners of motion in the stimuli are pull, push, roll, drag, carry type 1 and carry type 2. Carry type 1 means carry things on your hand, and carry type 2 means carry things on your back. And the 9 paths of motion are into, out of, across, around, up, down, towards, away from, and along. Here's examples of the 3 conditions. Let's see the full match first. So a person is carrying a suitcase into the house. For the pass match is a person is pulling a suitcase into the house. For the manner match is a person is carrying a suitcase out of the house. Here comes to the methodology procedure. Every participant will be tested by an established technique for their dominant eye. So for b-CFS, the flickering mask should always be shown to the dominant eye of the participant, and the non-dominant eye should always see the stimuli. So each participant will see 9 critical stimuli and 24 fillers and 4 practice trials. Each trial has 2 steps: goggle adjustment and decision making. Here we can see from the left, the dominant eye and the non-dominant eye. When the experiment starts, the participant will see 2 white rectangles on the screen first. Then they will put on the stereoscope goggle, and through the goggle, they will only see 1 rectangle. Once they can see only 1 rectangle, they will need to press the button, which means they have finished the goggle adjustment procedure. Then they press the button, and prime picture will be shown on the screen for 500 milliseconds. And then the screen will automatically jump into b-CFS procedure. And so the participants' dominant eye will see a flickering mask, a Mondrian mask, colorful, and the other non-dominant eye will see stimuli, which is located in one of the rectangle, one of the 4 corners of the rectangle, and this stimuli will gradually show to the participant, and it comes from the transparent into opaque within 2.5 seconds, and the whole length of the video is 4.5 seconds, and the video will be repeatedly played until the participant make a response by pressing one of the four corresponding buttons on the computer, on the keyboard. And their job is to find out the stimulus location. Once they can find the location, they press the button. Here is an example. So let's see the video on the right, the rectangle first, because you don't have the goggles, so you see two rectangles. If you have the goggle, you will only see one. So then there's a target picture, prime picture. Then it's a mask on your dominant eye, and the stimuli is on your non-dominant eye. And this is the whole trial, and the experiment contains 36 trials. And the hypothesis of this present study is if attentional biases to specific motion components, for example, manner and path, are predictable according to the speaker's native language, manner and path for English speakers will emerge into awareness differently compared to Chinese speakers. So most specifically, for English speakers, the time they used to break into awareness in the path match condition will be significantly longer than the time they used to break into awareness in a manner match condition. But for Chinese speakers, the time they used in each condition will be similar to each other. And for advanced Chinese L2 learners of English, their pattern of using the time to break into awareness in two conditions will be similar to the English speakers. And here I want to present my pilot study. So the pilot aims to validate the usability of b-CFS paradigm in motion event cognition research by manipulating manner and path components. Will there be differences in reaction time for between different groups? So as you can see from picture, in the pilot, there's no prime pictures. There are only three conditions: neutral, manner contrast, path contrast. So for English monolinguals, I had 19 and the items 136. And I divide the L2 learners into two groups, namely lower level and higher level learners, because I haven't been able to access to monolingual Chinese speakers. So I will use lower level. I will use L2 learners with lower proficiency level as a monolingual Chinese group. As you can see from the results, I calculate the residual by using condition X minus mean of the condition neutral. So that reaction time used in each condition, and I calculated them based on this formula. And I did run a linear mixed effect model, and I found for English monolinguals, they are significantly faster in the manner contrast when compared with the time used by the by the L2 learners with lower proficiency level. And however, there's also significance between English L1 with high level L2. I guess because my sample size was too small, and I need to look more. I need to look more in the real study, and also there's no difference between different conditions for English speakers. So English speakers, English monolinguals are a little bit faster in the manner contrast compared to the time they use in the manner contrast, but it's not significant. Maybe it's because of because of the sample size. The aim of the pilot study is to check whether b-CFS accessibly measures differences in language modulate motion event components on cognition. This pilot showed that the instrument is suitable for testing the research question, as it said. The benefits and the limitations of using b-CFS. b-CFS allows researchers to examine information processing without awareness in different participant groups. However, previous b-CFS only used static pictures as stimuli or using moving dots to examine simple information, for example, simple information processing, for example, directions. In the motion event video, there's so much information, and also the video was gradually appearing for the participant. So it is not easy to design an experiment using b-CFS in the motion events. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Xingyi and Norbert. That was fascinating. Very interesting technology to see. I see lots of people applauding already, showing their appreciation of this great talk. So the floor is open for questions. I think there is a question from Zhao Zhang. Could you please ask your question?
Okay, I can see. Oh, it's adults. I only tested adult monolingual Chinese speakers, and their age is from 19 to 30.
Okay. And Frybert has a question.
Yes, Xingyi, could you explain again what is it? I didn't understand well the process when these participants have the goggles, the awareness, when you talk about this time, this reaction times to awareness. Could you explain a bit again?
So, okay. So for breaking for b-CFS, imagine a situation like you are trying to find your key in a mass, and then you are looking for your keys for a long time, and then you just realize it's right in front of your eyes. So the mask is like the mass surrounds the keys that prevents you from looking for your spotting your key, and this is but it's quite difficult to test the saliency without, for example, in my real study, I will use a prime picture because I want to activate the relevant components for the participant, so they can process whether they can process manner on path differently after being activated by the prime. For example, also you are trying to find your key, but this time you are repeating keys, the words in out loud, like I want to find out my keys, and it might help you to find your keys sooner.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Very interesting. Very good work. Thank you.
And Panos?
Yes. Yeah, thank you, Xingyi. That sounds like a really fascinating study, to be honest. Yeah, I wish I was there with you doing it. It sounds so interesting, you know, to look at the results. And it's intriguing because I guess I have two questions here, you know, that kind of intrigue me. And the first one is, so what does the technique actually do? How does it prevent language being implicitly used in the task? Because, for example, with the classic verbal interference study with the repetition of the digits, the theory at least is that you know, it occupies a phonological loop if we're talking in terms of working memory, and so you cannot, you know, use the phonological loop to encode to recode rather the visual stimuli. So what exactly does the technique here take out? How does it work from I guess it's a theoretical question, really.
Could I?
Yeah, my co my co-worker will answer this question.
Oh, I'm happy to hear your views. So this is a technique that we found well unused in this area of research together, I have to say, with Silvia Gennari. So this has happened. This was born in the psychology department in York when we looked at the speed of intending it as a low-level recognition task. So that's why we blame it on low-level automatic processes, because all we have to do, and this goes back to Freibert's question again, is to spot, like, is there something happening on the screen? And as soon as there is something happening, participants have to press in which corner it is happening. So this, in this sense, it's a low recognition task. What it takes out is it's a type of a suppression that is visual, so it may be more resembling the Monique Flecken's waves in that sense, but it's fast and it's pretty cognitively demanding. So we are trying to detect whether if there is a semantically encoded, so how deep is the influence of manner or path in the semantic representation of the speakers. Like if in a difficult task it assists enough to detect manner faster in English speakers, and that's what we find in the pilot. And then in that sense, we think like, all right, this actually shows us that the manner information differs according to the language that people use habitually for encoding.
Okay, yeah, thanks for the information. I see now. So, all right. So I think then, I mean, so generally speaking, you know, if you look at categorization, non-verbal studies on motion events, you know that the effects are fragile. It's actually not a very good domain to study. If you're going to look at non-verbal cognition, don't start with motion. You're going to be so disappointed, you know, because you only get the effects under certain conditions. So, for example, all the studies I was presenting yesterday, they were only from one experiment where you manipulate working memory. In other experiments where memory is not involved, you don't get any cross-linguistic effects. And for example, other people like, well, Gennari herself, you know, her famous 2002 paper, and Anna Papafragu as well in her lab, they've shown time and again how really by default, you know, you don't get any kind of non-verbal effects of emotion event encoding. So I was thinking then, but you do get them when memory is involved, you know. So I think your design to begin with is good because you are sort of manipulating that in the presentation of the stimuli. So I was then wondering, you know, because I'm thinking, okay, what would a reviewer say if they had to look at your methodology? And one of the first things that they could potentially ask you is, well, how do you know it's not because of your stimuli? Because, for example, again, in the past, you know, stimuli, so presentation mode has been an issue, whether it's simultaneous or whether it's sequential. Stimuli themselves have been an issue because, for example, Papafragu used highly schematized, you know, cartoons, whereas Gennari used real videos. We use real videos as well. So how do you know it's not the stimuli? So what would convince somebody that, you know, you can get solid cross-linguistic differences with your stimuli will be to run your study without the flash suppression manipulation, just to show that, oh, look, when we run the study with the stimuli, we get the desired effect. You know, the stimuli can produce the cross-linguistic differences. Otherwise, when you get to the stage of showing the patterns with the suppression, well, for example, you showed that English speakers tended to be faster with manner, but it wasn't significant. The differences were kind of, so then you don't know if that's because of the suppression or if that's a general trend because of your stimuli. Do you see what I mean? That with this stimuli, that you're not going to get any more. So what's the ceiling of the cross-linguistic patterns that you're going to get? So it'd be nice to have that kind of as a baseline, if you like, you know, that, oh, look, we checked, and you know, without the suppression, this is what we get. You know, we produce these effects. And the other point I wanted to make, if I may, I don't know what.
Yeah, sure. We have extra. We've 5 minutes extra. Yeah.
And this is totally like exploratory, because you're showing people, from what I understood, maybe I have misunderstood here. Sometimes the critical stimulus is shown in the right eye and sometimes in the left eye. Is that? Yes. Yeah.
Depending on your dominant eye.
Okay. So I was wondering then if you thought about the whole lateralized Wolf phenomenon. from color perception, you know, that if you present stimuli on the right visual field, you're more likely to get a language effect because it's perceived by the language dominant left hemisphere and so on. So, well, of course, that also depends on you know, how far away from fixation your stimuli are presented and how far the participant is from the screen, if you want to, you know, do a laterality study. But the first thing I thought was this, you know, maybe you could also look at that, maybe turn that into a variable, you know, visual field presentation and see whether that modulates the behavior in some way.
Excellent points taken on board, and we're playing with these ideas. So to take the comments in reverse, with the visual field as a potential factor, we add it in a mixed model as a random effect. So that would wash out or show if there is something weird happening in the right visual field. And with the memory, actually inspired by one of your studies, like when the task is difficult and memory encoding is assisted by language because we need it more, just was at Levinson says, because it's a useful tool, then in our paradigm, that is the making the task more difficult comes through that initial suppression and then gradually appearing videos. So, you know, that's why we had a hunch that, okay, if this is a really complex task, if I need language and I will use it because it helps me, then it should emerge. Now, the comparison without the Mondrian mask is absolutely crucial. Otherwise, so definitely that's one level of control. We're thinking about that. So yeah, that's like a baseline that would.
Well, actually, that's a really good point, Norbert, because it all depends on how you frame what the suppression does. If you frame it as taking away something, then obviously we want to see what happens when that something is there. But if you frame it as increasing the difficulty of the task cognitively so that you rely more on language, that's something different from taking something out, if you see what I mean. So yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting to see what happens without the suppression for sure, you know, but yeah, I guess it's something to think about, you know, more theoretically then.
Yes. And the final comment in reflection to that would be that exactly the framing. So we went from the complete, you know, bottom-up route rather than the top-down. So we wanted to see like, hey, if I need to quickly decide if I see something or not, is it true that what I see breaks into awareness faster if I encode it in my dominant language? And how does it travel across learner varieties? Is it still the shadow of the first language that that is automatically encoded? So yeah, we'll do the with and without the suppression, but also we have about over 50% are non-manipulated control items, so fillers. So yeah, we also can quickly show like, hey, is that manipulation working or not? And what is it, just a difficulty, or is it something specific regardless of the difficulty that we can tell by comparing the fillers with the critical items? Thanks very much for the comments.
Can I just add as a question, were people actually aware that this was about manner or path of motion, or were there so many fillers that they actually, you know, weren't really aware of what the domain of investigation really was?
I don't think they will be aware of anything because their job is to find the location of the
stimuli.
The stimuli is manipulated by according to different conditions like manner, different manner match, path match, and neutral. So it's not the participant way. They have no clue at all about what I was doing. I just want to see whether the manner and the path components break into awareness differently without any awareness. Yeah,
I think that's beautiful. If they don't really know, right? That is quite beautiful, I think, in this task.
Thank you.
Thank you, Janine, for bringing this up, because I don't think we actually explicitly asked during the debriefing session. So we will, there's something to add.
Yeah, maybe, it would be really nice to know, because people may come up with very different answers, and it would be great if they were not aware, right? I think, yeah. Well, thank you again for a great time. I don't think there are further questions, but do let us know if there are. I don't think at the moment, but thank you very much indeed. Fascinating presentation.